All right, so January 30th, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just had the idea. My dad's putting out a lot of great content, sharing people's stories, childhood stories, and even what they're dealing with now because of their childhood trauma and abuse. And very powerful. Posting those on Richard Swink channel and Embodied Souls channel. And it just got me thinking, like, to post a video of mine, my story, sort of my family dynamic, my abuse, and that way I can rewatch this video, or, well, that way I can speak out about it, let it spark new ideas, memories, as well as to rewatch it, and because it's easy to hit so many topics and bounce around everywhere. So being able to rewatch it and go deeper on whatever I say in this video, and plus just with where I'm at on my healing, I just want to dig deeper on the attachments, just the whole programming, and I just see my cat climbing down a tree, but I see So yeah, just really wanting to nail down on this on these things, and so yeah, family dynamic, my experiences growing up. It's just gonna be sort of an overview. I don't know of how many years. Like, this will really just be the icebreaker and allow me to start thinking deeper. And because one thing I did question a lot in high school was, why is the majority of my childhood blacked out? Like, the majority of my childhood is just blacked out. I remember before I started targeting this childhood trauma and abuse and recalling past memories, I I was so curious. Oh, I only had 5 memories I could really pull up right away. And so it was just interesting to me, especially moving into Strasbourg, where most of the kids grew up with each other. Family stayed in the hometown, all the way from close-knit families, pretty much, community type deal, where everybody knows pretty much everybody. And so all these kids, they, even before school, they were friends, and all the way up till we graduated. And for me, I didn't have that. I moved around many times in my elementary school, went to different schools, stayed in Virginia, but bounced around different counties. And like, just my third grade year, I went to 3 different schools in my third grade year, and ended up failing my first year of third grade. But yeah, it's just really interesting. It's like, where do you even start, right? And then there's just so much detail that you can give, that I can give. And so, but for what I know, everything seemed okay. Everything seemed good. The first 6-7 years of my life. Now, I was around, because when I was first born, my dad was in the military, and he was still trauma bonded with his mom, his mom is highly fucking toxic. And I'm pretty sure we lived with her for like the first year or so. And just knowing my mom and his mom, because I was just in their hands, I was around a lot of narcissism, selfishness, and unhealed trauma, and hurt children in adult bodies. But with my grandma, just a really nasty person. Not saying that is who she is authentically. That's just the character she's playing from all the hurt and trauma she hasn't dealt with. But yeah, she's a nasty woman. How she treats people major narcissistic and such. So just being around that. Um, but I'm pretty sure I was in loving hands. Like my grandma was one to, because she always searched for the richest man. So, I had everything I needed. I know that. Um, got my physical needs met. I'm sure I was all lovey-doved on too. So, nothing too crazy, and things really didn't change. Didn't get too crazy until. Was there anything else to add before that? No. Yeah. So, but yeah, I had everything I needed from when I was born up to 6 or 7 years old. I think 7 years old. Had everything I needed, more than I needed. My dad, he was running his own business, making six figures a year at 22, 23, 24, and supplied me with all the electronics. I had all the toys, all the gadgets, had everything. Spoiled, I'd say. And I remember being super, super close with my dad, loving my dad deeply. I don't really remember mine and my mom's connection. I just remember throughout my entire childhood, really looking up to my dad, and I've always felt like I saw potential in him that he didn't see himself. Like I was very inspired by him because he was a highly masculine man, and just how he presented himself and how he carried himself, it was very very inspiring and such. And plus, on top of that, being a fun extrovert, well, he forced that extrovert personality, but yeah, just he seemed fun and everything like that. But yeah, I grew up in Manassas because I'm pretty sure after we left my grandma's, because of military, I think we lived in like Kansas, and only for like a short period of time, and then eventually we moved back out to Virginia. And I'm just gonna say we went straight to Manassas because that's the majority of my childhood. That's like the beginning stages of my childhood. I remember really starting off in it, and but we grew up more in the ghetto. I wouldn't say like broken down or anything. I mean, it's all around for sure. Like ghetto's just all over in Manassas, and we're in Yorkshire on that part of it. And fuck, had a brain fart. Yeah, it was crazy. Like I had a bunch of ideas or thoughts coming in my head when I was making my juice just now, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I should make a video about this. And then as soon as I got out here, I just like had a brain fart. Like it's like a blockage. But so I'm just gonna continue speaking on this. Um, yeah, lived in Manassas, grew up in Manassas, ghetto. It was ghetto to the point where you just you're on the block and there's babies with their bottles filled with alcohol, and babies falling over. And I don't remember any of that. This was from 0 to 7 years old. But my dad would say, yeah, people just getting their babies drunk as fuck and letting them like to the point they're passing out and shit like that. Like just weird shit like that. And but yeah, mine and my dad's relationship was strong. I remember always going with him everywhere, especially on his when he had his own business with books and such. And but yeah, so came about 7 years old is when my sister was born, the second oldest. And my dad thought the child was his all the way up to birth. Still not even fully sure on birth. He just saw that it was a fully Hispanic baby, and then did a DNA test without telling my mom, and came back that it wasn't his. And and that's when that divorce started. They split up, and um, and it was whenever they split up that things got wild. My dad says at first, because my mom went through postpartum depression and was to the point that she wanted to kill my little sister, and so we moved in with him, or he took us with him, me and my sister, because my mom was just so unhinged. And because my mom has deep, super, 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 super deep trauma and abuse and sexual abuse, all kinds of things. I mean, her abuse is horrible. And she can't even admit it. She can't say it. She won't even acknowledge it, because it is just so much for her to handle. So, that just shows, you can guess where she's at in life right now. Very highly coping person. Oh man, it's nuts. But yeah, so knowing she cheated on my dad when they were married, and having a man who never having someone who never loved you like that, and then to just do something like that to him, and then divorce. I'm sure so many things added into her postpartum depression, and yeah, she was to the point where she was trying to kill my sister, and while she was a baby. My sister was born when I was 7 years old. Moved with my dad, went to, and then shortly after, because my dad became a major alcoholic from depression, that divorce, that cheating probably really sparked, really threw him in the dirt, because he already had so much trauma and abuse himself, that being the icing on the cake just really just threw him in the dirt. So he just had to become a major alcoholic. He quit his business. He had enough inventory that he continued his business, and but he just stayed home, and he just mailed out packages until he ran out of inventory. And then I'm pretty sure he lived off of that money for like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years or something like that. But for the first year, just got up, drank himself all day, all the way up till passing out, drinking as soon as he wakes up from passing out. Just major alcoholic all night, all day, because he wasn't working. He bought a house, and we stayed there, and he just didn't have to work. He had plenty of money, so we just but I know we didn't stay with him long, because he saw how fallen apart he was, so he gave us back to my mom, and because he knew he needed to get his shit straight, I'm guessing. And yeah, as soon as we went back to my mom's, it was a whirlwind of abuse. It was bad. My mom was completely unhinged. I don't remember anything with my sister, as in like my mom doing anything to my sister. But for me, I guess being the oldest, the one who can take it, and being a resemblance of my dad, looking a lot like him and everything like that, yeah, she abused the fuck out of me. And those Hispanic moms, they're known for doing all kinds of things, throwing shit at you, blah blah blah. So she would pull hair, pinch, scratch, grab you and scratch you, and dig her nails into you. Like if you just got on her nerves, just slapping you around type deal. And anytime I did anything, yeah, just beat the fuck out of me. I mean, with her, I don't think I was ever even spanked on the butt by her. Like, she never even spanked me. She just beat me. And yeah, I remember getting beat in front of my friends, and they were terrified. They like stood there in shock because I dropped mud on the back porch, like a glob of sort of dry mud, and just dropped it down and shattered everywhere. And then she came and just beat the fuck out of me. And my friends were like, what the fuck? And yeah, I remember that. But yeah, she beat me to the point where even her boyfriend at one time was holding her back with all his might, because it was on my birthday. It was actually on my birthday. We had people over, but I was upstairs with a friend, and we were throwing like this little thing, and when he threw it, it went behind her like jewelry box. It went into her dresser. Her dresser doors were open, and it went into her dresser and went behind something. I think her jewelry box. If it was, I'm just saying jewelry box because that's what she was blaming me on. When she came upstairs, she was like, "What the fuck are you doing in there? Like you fucking with my jewelry? Are you stealing?" Like, and Chase me was chasing. I mean, the face, the look on her face was terrifying. Like like I touched the most prized possession in her life, and she was chasing, like screaming after me and chasing me, but I kept dodging her, jumping over the bed. And then her boyfriend had to come up, and he was holding her back, and she's like going like this, looking at me with like death in her eyes, like she's ready to murder. And just like fucking, I don't even remember what all she was saying. I just know she was ready to get a hold of me. And I stood there at the end by the time he got her, and I was just standing there at the other side of the bed, just like looking straight in her face and her eyes, and just like shocked, like couldn't even move. And because she literally looked like she was gonna kill me. Like that was probably the scariest moment I had, that I can recall from that abuse. And you gotta get it, like this abuse only lasted, I think, a year and a half, because I got myself out of it. But yeah, so that was freaky, man. I just remember running for my life, but like I don't know why I never ran out the door, but just like kind of running circles, dodging her and shit. I know as soon as she came up and she had that look and fucking said some shit, my buddy dipped. I mean, he was gone. And yeah, on my birthday, family's downstairs, all kind of, yeah, just completely unhinged. And but yeah, I remember him just holding her back, and like he had to like grab her by the waist or like this, and she's just like lunging forward trying to grab a hold of me, saying like pretty much along the lines of like, you fucked up. But yeah, probably saying all kinds of bad shit. And yeah, I just remember just having, like, he was like, dude, go, like, go outside, I got this. And yeah, so that and yeah, with that abuse, so I would go up to my grandma's on my dad's side every summer. Usually spend like anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months. And there was one summer I went up there and I told my grandma everything. And I started telling my grandma, she's like, hold on, we're going to write all this down, and we're going to tell the lawyers, we're going to get lawyers, we're going to do this, we're going to get you out of there. I remember, and she would sit there with her laptop and just tell me to speak, and she was writing every fucking thing down. I leave her place, and yeah, I leave her place, and nothing changed, nothing happened. I was still getting abused. I just couldn't handle it any longer. And so eventually at 8 years old, I called my dad, and because I don't think I was seeing my dad at all. I mean, yeah, I don't think I was seeing him at all at that time when I moved back in with my mom, and just because he was so broken. And yeah, I would just remember calling him and telling him, hey, you gotta come pick me up, it's bad over here. because I didn't know if my grandma was getting things on the roll or if things were just taking too long. I just knew I had to get out. And yeah, so I told my dad, and within a week he came and picked me up. But as soon as I called him and he said yeah, he'd pick me up, I packed out. So like the grocery store was called Shoppers, and families, they'll stock up on the plastic bags. And so I packed every single fucking thing in my room in plastic bags, plastic grocery bags. And my mom's boyfriend, I think, came home or something, came check things out. And because she was at work, she would just leave me home all day with my sister. And yeah, so I took care of my sister a lot because my mom was always out. And like I said, I really can't remember any childhood memories with my mom other than getting abused. And like, I don't remember any good times. I don't remember any connection, authentic connection times. Like, I remember more with my dad than I do with my mom. And yeah, so he came upstairs and he was like, "What are you doing?" Or he's like, "What's up?" And I was like, I'm leaving." And he went, "Oh." He was like, "Oh." He didn't say anything else, and he just turned around and left. And I'm pretty sure I heard him call my mom. And yeah, my mom got home that night, because after, I guess, just feeling the whole situation as a kid, I could tell that he knew it was a bad idea or something bad was going to happen. And he and then hearing him call my mom, so I just was sitting on my bunk bed just staring out the window until she got home. And I'm pretty sure at that time I just, like, I didn't give a fuck. I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. My mom had such an abusive, loving relationship with me, so I think at that time I almost felt like she would understand why I was leaving. And but yeah, sure enough, she comes upstairs. She's like, sort of like, "What the fuck is this? What are you doing?" And I said, "Dad's coming to pick me up, and I'm moving out. Dad's coming to pick me up." No word said. She just fucking punches me in the mouth. And because I just remember like blood coming out of my mouth. And but all I remember is that one punch. I don't remember anything after. I just remember like her punching me, and I didn't even cry or nothing. I was so in shock. I was like, "What the fuck?" And but yeah, I didn't start crying until she was like, "Unpack everything." And sure enough, I started unpacking everything. And then yeah, don't remember anything after that. Yeah, like, I literally just remember these memories. I don't have any memories of, or I can't recall any of the memories like in between my abuse. Like, it was just abuse, blackout, abuse. Like, it's strange. Yeah, very strange. So it's not that I'm trying to recall every memory in my life, but really just trying to put it all together. But yeah, so and when I started school, I was the only white kid. I was raised in a Hispanic and black community, so I was the only white kid. It was funny though. The one other, like, sort of white kid, he was I think he was white. His name was Brandon too. He lived like neighborhood next door, and I would go to his place. But yeah, so I'd, and just around a bunch of troublemakers and such. So I just remember as a kid, so this is interesting. As a kid, I remember getting in fights a lot. But then as soon as I started getting abused, I became very timid. Like, I hated any altercation. Any altercation, like, threw me into survival. Like, but it was almost like a fight or flight, fight, flight, or freeze. But I was stuck in the freeze. I would get stuck in the freeze and just be terrified, like, because I just did not like that aggression, seeing how just the major aggression and anger from my mom, like to the point where it just seemed like she would kill you, and um, and so seeing how people would get upset and want to start fighting, people start getting loud, this and that, and it would just throw me straight into like a freeze, like scared, just totally timid. And so from then on, I just did not like any altercations. And but yeah, just oh, and another thing. So that was my physical abuse, which all ended when I moved out of there. I can't remember if, I don't think anytime I went back to visit her, because I was abusively emotionally attached to my mom. I had a loving, abusive relationship with my mom. So like even leaving her, I felt guilty. Like I had to still go and see her. And so I can't remember if like she's such a manipulator, and it's just nasty, it's gross. So I can't tell what she said to me afterwards or what. I know she, out of nowhere, I noticed in like my teens I became her favorite, right? Like she propped me up on everything. And she that was until she almost tried writing me off. But yeah, so I would still go see her sometimes. And but yeah, just moving right back in with my dad, major alcoholic, around people who do drugs and are major alcoholics and are just a bunch of nutheads. His friends were, and the people he would hang out with and be at the house and all that. I was a little nut myself too. After leaving Manassas, I was so into chains. I had necklaces, metal type necklaces, gold chains, silver chains on my neck, big ass ones with big things at the bottom, and like a dragon or some shit. And I had a whole drawer full of them, and I would wear super baggy clothes, and like I was a chulo, and but yeah, so, and also while my parents were still together and I would, because I'd be so terrified sleeping alone, I would sneak into their room. And I think this was my introduction to sex, was just seeing them have sex. I never sat and watched it. I remember like first time walking in being like, what the fuck? And then but just like, I remember just being so scared and like also sad. So I just, because they had a bed that was up, and it was like a king size bed that was up on a base. So I just laid right at the bottom of the base and just laid there. But yeah, just seeing my parents have sex a lot. Then after they divorced, seeing my mom have sex a lot. Guys naked on the bed, guys naked on the couch. Always seeing guys hollering at my mom. You know how those Hispanic dudes are, they'll just be whistling and everything and checking out your mom the entire time they drive by, or hanging out the window and shit like that. So just seeing a lot of sexual tendencies. Got opened up to porn at a pretty young age, like right around then when my mom and dad divorced and I moved back in with her. Playing me and the neighborhood girls, me and girls at school, me and girls that my mom was friends with their moms, and we'd go to their house. Just a lot of sexual play, even trying to have sex when we're like 6, or not 6, but um, like 7, 8 years old, and, and not even knowing what you're doing, but you both pull your pants down and you're naked. And like this one time, we were at this house, and me and the girl were in a room, very young we were, and we started trying to have sex, and her brother, we were doing it with the door wide the fuck open too, and our family literally right next door, in the next door room, in the living room, because her room was right next to the living room. And her brother came and was like, oh, like, what the fuck? And so he went straight and told, but and it was within like a 20-second 15-second span, and we had already got our pants put our clothes on, and was just, I turned on the TV and just made it seem like we were just sitting there. And yeah, so it was just, I had a bunch of sexual encounters and sexual exposure when I was young. Just seeing it all over, plus the music I listened to, and wanting to be gangster and everything, and it seemed like sex was just the pinnacle in your life, and so, and girls and all that. So that was a huge like focus in my life, my entire school years pretty much. And then so yeah, I dealt with the physical abuse. I guess I'll share this, be very broad about it though, but oh yeah, and even seeing like my Hispanic grandparents, they would fuck to porn, and like having this big flat screen TV in the room and everything, like everything was just so open, right? So like people would be having sex upstairs, people would be having sex downstairs, the people running out the basement when I lived with my mom, they'd be having sex all the time. And yeah, so just seeing constant sex everywhere you go. And I never dealt with any sexual abuse, but I did. I was, I don't know how long this went on for, but I'm not going to say what side of the family, but a few years older than me. And I just remember her coming in sleeping with me one time, and the only thing I really remember with that is being in my underwear and having a crazy boner, and like being like, I need to take a piss. And that's all I remember from that. I'm not sure how long that lasted, if it was what all, but so that was my only like sexual interaction with someone older than me, that was family. And so yeah, I dealt with that was just that time. I'm not sure if there was more or not. I really don't think so. My family wasn't like that, any weird in that way. They were just highly emotionally immature, and highly traumatized and abused people. And but yeah, I remember being around a lot of babysitters, having to go to a lot of babysitters, living with my mom. And so, it's just hard to tell what all has happened. But yeah, just a lot of sex in my life. So much sex. It's just nuts. Yeah, sex and girls. And so yeah, yeah, I remember things being fine living with my dad. Then eventually came a time where, like, there's really nothing to complain about with my dad, in the sense of like being there for me, in the sense of taking care of me. Yeah, he wasn't there emotionally for me, and things like that, but he did spend a lot of time with me, like playing and such. Like, he was the one dad in the neighborhood who would always be out there running around, throwing football, being active, playing with the neighborhood kids and everything. So That was when we were living in Manassas, though, and my mom and him were still together. But after that, it was really just me and him. It wasn't like there was a neighborhood where we really all ran around, but I spent a lot of time with my dad, even if he took me in wild situations with going to parties or going around just a nuthead group of people and who were acting wild and stuff. But yeah, other than that, so yeah, seeing sex was the big deal, and then I learned that smoking was cool and stuff. So I would steal cigarettes and be taking them to school and not even lighting them up, just like acting like I'm smoking and just stupid shit like that. Never got in trouble for it, but I definitely know I reeked of tobacco because I would just grab cigarettes and put them in my pocket and they would be all crushed up at some point. So, just horrible role models, really. Yeah, because it was pretty much like I was finding fascination in the American dream of smoke what you will, drink all you want, sex all you want, rock and roll all you want, And so that's what I idolized when I was a kid. But yeah, and yeah, my dad and the open sex he had with a few women. So, it was him too with that, with the sexual exposure. I remember though, any woman with my dad, I hated every single one of them. I hated anybody who took my dad's attention. So that's that. By the time I reached like 12, maybe 10, I can't really remember, anywhere from 10 to 13. I remember spending the weekend with my mom. She came and she went to drop me off. And as she dropped me off that weekend, she got me a flip phone. But then she dropped me off and gave me a note before I left. And my dad recalled this memory for me because he was so surprised I didn't remember it. But the note had said something along the lines like, I love you, you'll always be my son, but we have to part ways and like pretty much can't see you anymore, don't want to see you anymore, you can no longer come over. And my dad said I had been bawling my eyes out and like asking him what the fuck this letter meant and everything. And so my mom tried writing me off because she's such a sick and twisted person. It's like, because she lost that one love in her life, the only one who ever truly cared about her, and now that they were separate, and it's like she had to give revenge or something. And so she tried taking my sister away, saying, I'm going to keep Sammy, your dad's going to keep you, and we're just going to keep it at that. We got to go our separate ways, separate families, all that. And yeah, so just crazy, man. So yeah, my dad said I was distraught about that, totally ripped apart when I read that. And yeah, then by 8th grade year, so I finally settled in a town I grew up in 3rd grade. My second year of 3rd grade, towards the end of it, I moved there towards like the last 2 months or so of it, and stayed in that school all the way up till 11th grade until I moved out. But yeah, I went there. it was very different. Now it was all white kids, and not only that, which before that I was, because I moved in with my dad. I went to Front Royal, went to Winchester, so there were white. I was back. I was around white kids as well, but it was just when I was living in Manassas where I was the only white kid, and I went to school there till third grade, on and off though, because I kept moving around. Um, but yeah, yeah, even that Manassas place, like I could never keep a bike for longer than it was just durations at time because it would always get stolen and so crazy, man. The place was wild. I got in trouble quite a bit for stealing in class, stealing DSs, and um, yeah, just being a crazy kid. Like, yeah, it's just so wild how wrapped up in the wrong things we were. Like, um, just remember like kids taking me, and we would, because I always hung out with people way older than me. Like even when I was in like fifth grade, I was hanging out with high schoolers and just exposing me to tobacco, doing dip, smoking, fucking would have me be the one to go and bang on all the doors and ding dong ditch and just do stupid shit. And yeah, but no, so yeah, just my childhood really turned me into that survival mechanism. I remember always being tense in my body, very tense, like flexing type tense, and um, always trying. Like, I remember just being such a spontaneous, free kid, and then it was really that abuse, and it was that abuse, and then I remember crying my eyes out when I had to leave when my dad picked me up from my mom's, because I was just so emotionally attached to that place, all the way from with my mom to I remember crying about the girl I was dating before I left, and like all these things. I was so emotionally attached to that area where I grew up in. It was where I was comfortable, and but yeah, I got to but yeah, I guess I still spent quite a bit of time on my own just because my dad was constantly drunk and stuff. Um, so yeah, things like that. But I know we spent a lot of time together too. But yeah, around so then just a leap forward to eighth grade. I think it was like right at the beginning of eighth grade, before wrestling season started that year. My dad ended up having a ended up getting a brain injury, so he moved in, he had to go to the VA, and then that was the last time. Right there at the beginning of eighth grade year, I don't know how long it was until I saw him again, but for the rest of my high school years, I never moved back in with him. um, but yeah, I moved into my dad's ex-wife's father's house because he got me into wrestling, and um, yeah, he got me into wrestling and moved in with him, which is my little brother Aiden's grandpa. And when I moved in there, I had no restrictions. I had no rules other than get good grades and wrestle, and yeah, that was really it. Just get good grades and wrestle. And so when I had that freedom, I was that's when I started getting very heavy in drugs, and not heavy in drugs, but not my 8th grade year. I mean, I'd smoke pot here and there, and once in a while, and do drink once in a while. Basically my 8th grade year, I stayed at this girl's house, and pretty much stayed with her most of the time. So like they let me wherever. They really didn't care, but they bought me anything I needed. Always had the support of clothes, and they got me contacts and in my eyes and so did all that type of stuff for me. But as long as I got good grades, and see, when I failed my first year of school, I was like, oh shit, I gotta take this shit serious. Because I remember being like bawling out, crying when I was like, fuck, I gotta redo 3rd grade, and there's no way to reverse it now, like I have to. So yeah, I started taking school a lot more serious in the way of just keeping up my grades. And by the time I was in 8th grade, I saw it was all memorization and just being tested weekly on what you learned that week. And so I was like, oh well, this is pretty fucking easy. Just gotta remember the terminology, really, and the equations, and that's it. Like, I don't even have to know it. I just gotta visualize it, study what it looks like, visualize it, and just kind of pull it up in my head. And so yeah, 8th grade year was really fun. 9th grade year was really fun. Yeah, 9th grade year was really fun. Bunch of crazy stuff. 10th grade year was really fun. And then but as those years started going, I think it was like 10th grade summers when I started smoking every day, and then eventually got into pills and doing other things as well as drinking. And then it got to the point in my 11th grade year where my emotions were out of control. And so my emotions were out of control, and I was never getting that authentic connection, that emotional support. So I was just acting out. I couldn't even be nice to the grandparents I was living with, the step grandparents. Like, I just had such a major attitude. And it's just crazy how they never questioned anything. They just let me do it. As long as I kept good grades and was wrestling, everything was fine. So yeah, and it's like they knew I was doing drugs. They at least knew I was smoking weed, because I mean, I'd be bringing pack into the house and everything, and I thought they wouldn't smell it because I couldn't even smell it because my nose was so blind to it. But having been clean now and just knowing how potent that smell is, it's like, dude, they had to have known. But yeah, so it was getting to a point where I had to dip out between classes and go right outside the schoolyard and be smoking a bunch. And eventually I was like, well, I don't want to get in trouble for that, so I just started packing up soda bottles and emptying them out, leaving a little soda in there, and pouring a liquor and vodka in them, and drinking that. I'd only drink them the first, because we had 4 classes and then we had lunch, and so I would drink them the first half of the day, pass out at lunch, because our lunch was like an hour and a half, because it was 4 different lunches and RAM time and shit like that. And so I would pass out in a class, and usually with this girl who would rub my back and just be there for me. And then she would wake me up and let me get me going to class. But yeah, it was getting to a point where I was taking pills and drinking. I was just an emotional wreck, a complete emotional fucking wreck, because I just couldn't hold. It was just making itself known. I couldn't suppress it, so I had to get majorly fucked up. Getting called into the office for punching walls, punching lockers, blood on the walls, um, and then of course our school was really weird because it was like the cops wouldn't even tell my parents or my guardians what I was doing. They would go and tell the school, and then the school would question me. Everywhere from psychedelics to being at a party or this or that. So yeah, it's strange, those things. But I don't know if they did. Maybe they did tell my step grandparents. My step grandparents just never questioned a fucking thing I did. They just let me run wild. Um, so it's just so strange. But yeah, got real big into drugs, got super addicted, would try to get fucked up as much as you could, and yeah, so my 11th grade year, I had to make an adult decision to get out of there. All my friends had already graduated, like I said, majority of them are older than me. I just had that one that was in my class, but who is my best friend. But I had to leave. I told him, I was like, dude, if I stay here any longer, I'll probably kill myself. Or if I stay here for another school year, things are not going to be good. So I packed up my car and dipped out my junior year. Actually, I dipped out 5 days before school started up in Pennsylvania, because I moved like 4 or 5 hours away from where I was living and moved in with my uncle and went up there. And yeah, so went up there, and because I was so ego driven, and I moved to a rich ass school, like went from a school that was only 130 kids in a class to a school that was 650 plus kids in a class. And these kids were filthy rich and all that. And but it was cool. I met 2 really cool dudes. One died a couple years back as he got in a car accident after a party, and the other one, I don't know if he's still wrestling in college or not. I'm sure he's graduated, but and they were on the poor side. They were the ones who were poor, and we connected so much better because, dude, those kids were so stuck up there. But it was a lot of fun though. Parties at some big ass houses. So yeah, my goal, my intentions when I went up there was just to be a wild animal. I didn't even want to wrestle, but as soon as I got there, my uncle was like, "Oh, so we gonna watch you wrestle?" And I was like, "You know what? Fuck it. Oh, I'll wrestle this year." And yeah, so it was crazy. So I was just thinking, oh, I'm gonna do the work hard, play harder type deal, like I did back in school in Strasbourg. But I was able to fully let go when I was up in PA and be myself. So I wrestled the most spectacular I've ever wrestled in my life. I had no fear. I had no timidness. So like I said, even with once the abuse had made me scared of altercations, that's how I was going into wrestling. I was very timid. I did not like the extreme aggression. It startled me. It scared me. And so I was like that with wrestling, even subconsciously when I wasn't trying to be like that. But for some reason, I just couldn't handle that extra bit of aggression. And but once I got up into PA, I totally let go of all that. And because I wanted to be known, I wanted to make my name known when I went up there. So I was completely ego driven when I went up there. All I wanted to do was get fucked up, party, fuck girls, but create a name for myself in wrestling. And but man, so I did all that the first 2-3 months I was up there. And then right before wrestling season, I lose 2 teeth through a brain injury. And the brain injury took me out of, not only did it take me out of wrestling, it took me out of school. I wasn't even going to school. It was I did go to school after a little while, but they dropped me down just to one class because I just had enough credits built up. I was pretty much ready to graduate. I didn't need to take all the classes I was taking, so they dropped me down to 2 or 3 classes, but really I just had to focus on the one. And yeah, so that was all the way up till senior year. And so you can see, like, the role models in my life have had me just thinking life was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And but yeah, I was always needing validation outside of myself. I was always I was highly vain, which I'm sure I got it from both sides of my parents, but definitely my mom. Um, highly vain, just just pretty much performing, doing everything for outside of me for everybody else. And I don't mean in the sense like I was trying to help people. I was saying in the sense to boost my ego, in the sense of being looked up to and respected in a way of masculinity and such. So um, yeah, that's just a hit on it. I'm just trying to spark some ideas and such. Just kind of wanted to give a little overview of my childhood, um, on how it's been about for me. I say the majority of the abuse was just not only being born into abusive systems and parents teaching me to fit in and to comply and forcing human separation and toxic foods and all that. But other than that, abuse that is like the foundation of all the abuse everybody suffers, loving parents or not. The emotional immaturity was just that thing, and just having a bad role models who yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah, I guess that's everything. Sheesh.